is Dave, it is Duncan, back from Metal Epidemic for another album review. And for this review, Duncan and I have been checking out the new album from American Deathgrind band Cattle Decapitation. The band's new album, Terrasite, will be released on May 12th via Metal Blade Records. So, the 10th studio album from Cattle Decap, which follows up their 2019 release, Death Atlas. Written both separately and during sessions together in San Diego, which required certain members to regularly fly into the city, the record came together naturally, though not without personal struggle. Every member of the current lineup, Elmore, Ryan, guitarist Belisario, bassist Oliver, and drummer David, have grown to fill their musical niche in the band and learned how to get the best out of each other, making for their most accomplished work to date. The title is a word invented by Ryan that brings together terra, meaning earth, and site, derived from the Greek word sitos, which means food. Yep. The combination of the two meaning earth eater as a metaphor for humanity's role in the destruction of the planet, and as a play on words of the very fitting word parasite. This is vividly brought to life in the artwork by a long-time collaborator, Wes Benscoter. We see the nymph stage of this human-cockroach hybrid that is more of a fully grown being than has just molted from its Uthaka stage, startled, confused, frightened, but also pissed off and ready to join the rest of its brood in finishing humanity's job of destroying the earth. When asked where he's coming from lyrically on the record, Ryan frankly states, from a place of distress, anger, rage, resentment, depression, anxiety, a poor outlook on our species, both on a day-to-day level, a broader worldly level, as well as a philosophical level. The band once again worked with producer Dave Otero, who knows the members' individual styles and how to coax the best out of them, bringing in Tony Parker of Midnight Odyssey to handle piano and synths. Finally, the album also pays homage to friend and Cattle Decap co-founder Gabe Serbian, who took his own life before the album was complete. Vocalist Travis Ryan went into an incredibly dark place, and then within a couple of weeks being there, he learned that our friend Trevor Strnad of the Black Dahlia murder had taken his life as well. It just felt like things were unravelling for so many of our friends who we consider family, having lost a couple of friends after 2 years of everyone trying to get through the pandemic and navigate through this to come out on the other end with everything still together. All of this informed the lyrics to the epic closer, Just Another Body, Ryan stating, all these months later, after many listens, it still has a shroud around it that will never disappear. It was written during some of the hardest moments in the band's career. So, with that out of the way, let's get on to the album, Duncan.
All right then.
I, huge Cattle Decap fan, firstly, I will put that up front.
It's not true, you dislike them vehemently.
Did
not drag me out on a day which can only be described as with the heavens fucking opened up. Absolutely fucking soaked to interview a man in a corridor. That never happened.
Yes, we did. We spoke to Josh last year in Glasgow. Really cool dude, really nice, down-to-earth guy. And he definitely got me excited for this one.
Drop keywords everywhere. It was just,
absolutely.
Just reeling you
in. So, as soon as I spoke to him, I was like, whenever this album comes in, I am selfishly going to claim it for us to review. So sorry to the other reviewers of the website.
Did you pull out the boss card?
I did. I was like, I'm Vito. I am taking this album for us, I'm afraid.
I've changed my name to Vito.
So the last 3 albums from this band for me have really transcended them into a different league when it comes to extreme metal bands. Monolith of Inhumanity was such a statement, almost like a new era, really, and really showed the band leveling up in songwriting, composition, stylistic blend, and in the quality of their production as well. And that's followed through onto the Anthropocene Extinction and Death Atlas, which were again both stellar albums. I honestly don't know if I could pick a favourite, if I'm honest. They all have something that kind of stands out about them. So I find it really difficult to choose one of those. But this one is 10 tracks, runs about 52 minutes roughly in length, which is just slightly shorter than Death Atlas. I was curious to where they would go with this album and how it would compare to those previous releases. And I suppose that the good news is this still sounds very in keeping with the intensity and the kind of savagery of those last three releases. It's got the staples, it's got the tight machine gun blasts, it's got the grooves, it's got the technically savage riffs, and it's got Travis adding his kind of array of vocal styles to the mix as well. And they, once again, they sound phenomenal. It's hard to believe, but on each Cattle Decap album, they managed to kind of showcase how much they've grown since the last release. And this is no different. There is a kind of precision in their playing here that is just, it is immaculate. Like the riffs, the drumming, the bass work, it all feels like machine tight, very intricate. Especially in the guitars, the way that Josh and Belisario like quickly just are moving around the fretboard it's really impressive to sit and listen to. But and as remarkable as it is, it never becomes too much either. I think they've created a really nice balance on this album between intricacy and simplicity, because it doesn't always have to be 100 miles an hour, 1,000 notes. Sometimes like just keeping it simple and effective can be more impactful. I think they balance the two of those really well on this album. I'd say personally, I think this is a more memorable album musically than Death Atlas was. From the kind of the style of the riffs they've used on the album, down to the kind of the juxtaposition of the contrast on tracks like Aphotic Doom, where the guitars and the lead work are kind of giving you moments of like kind of light in amongst all the kind of heaviness. And like heaviness there is plenty of on this album. Every track has like a weight to it. Like the riffs just constantly twist and turn, but very satisfying. You know, there's really nice moments of brutality in there that are just like so rewarding to listen to. And it's funny, like I was listening to this, like Cattle Decap are not a band that are massively down-tuned. Like I think I read somewhere it was like E flat or something like that they down-tuned to on certain albums. But it sounds ridiculously heavy, just punishingly heavy on this album. I also think there's little moments where I think they've added a touch more of a more kind of obvious black metal in the guitar work on this release.
Oh yeah, like I think it stood out to me. Track 2, We Eat Our Young. The end of that could just literally be it's like a fucking black metal fan's wet fucking dream.
Yeah. I think like prior to this, a lot of the times they would blend that really well with death metal or grindcore and stuff. But there was moments on this where it's just like it's just like pure black metal and little blasts of it. You get it on that track, and The World Will Go On Without You, Solastalgia.
You're right there.
I'm on a bit of a stroke here. Solastalgia, I think it is. But yeah, little moments in there where it just really stood out. I thought that was really cool. The other thing that really stands out on this album is the bass. The bass is far more prominent on this release than it was before. And I think it was something that was missing from Death Atlas, if I'm honest. But I think it feels plays more of a part on this album. You can hear all those little runs, the little flurries from Oliver, and they're loud and clear on the album. And it just makes things more interesting, especially on those repeat listens where you'll start to notice more and more little bass licks that you never noticed before. Drumming wise, David McGraw is insane. Like the drumming is ridiculous on this.
His fucking feet, man. His feet must fall off at some point, surely.
And we saw him live. He can do it live as well.
It makes it look really fucking easy live as well, which is even more like disheartening. Yeah. He's just up there going,
I know. And I think like when you're listening to this album,
like an old man with a set of maracas, like at a salsa. Chaos is happening. Ding 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 ding.
He looks so relaxed as well.
Sickening.
But I think it's easy to overlook the drumming on this album because the playing from the rest of the band is such a high level. But if you just sit and listen to the drums on their own, it's so impressive. Like the blasts are super tight. His bass drum work is really intricate and really interesting, especially at the speeds he's playing at, because that cannot be easy at all. But he's also really good at knowing when to control a track as well. So like something like The Storm Upstairs is a good example of how he kind of pulls back and just gradually builds the intensity of the drums throughout the track before he like unleashes those like thunderous blasts with the bass drums and stuff. Just a killer performance from front to back from him. And then there's a little thing called the vocals of the album. The trademark kind of vocal style of Travis, I think, has made him one of the more standout vocalists in the,
I think
in the
it's
genre.
one of the, like, it's not even just stand out. I think it's made him.
I'd say top 5 extreme metal vocalists.
I would agree. I think it's the use
Yeah.
of the vocal techniques. It's not just a I can do. It's they're used like every time you get that kind of more like aggro melody.
Yeah.
It always, it always feels like it's exactly when it should have come in. The guttural stuff is like unbelievably low. And then he has that like classic death metal kind of grill as well, which you can pull off easy. But it's the addition of the higher register of the black metal stuff, which just makes him easily one of the most versatile death metal vocalists ever. I'm with you. I know everyone talks about fucking Lorna Shore dudes, right? And he can hit different tones and all the rest. But I do feel there's a bit of that after a while feels very gimmicky. Whereas I feel like everything, specifically on this album vocally, is wholly intentional. It's like, right, this is the bit where I need to shift my range to here to better the song. Guess what? Better's the fucking song. So.
Yeah, and it sounds better on every album. But what I would say about this is that I feel like he's pushing the boundary even further on this one. We've got the gutturals, the high-end screams, the tonal screams, the stuff that he's known for, and they all sound on point on this. His tone sounds really venomous, but I think he's expanded that melody even further on this record, giving you moments of pure, clean melody. That tracks like The Insignificance and Just a Body adds like another level to this album. Not only that, but I think the vocal hooks he's embedded in this album there's some real earworms on
Scourge of
this.
the Offspring is a fucking banger, right? Absolute stone cold fucking Steve Austin fucking opening a can of whip ass banger. Like the chorus on that one is a ear fucking worm.
Yep, 100%.
It feels huge as well. Like whenever you're listening, you kind of feel like your hand has to be risen like this, even when you're listening to it for no reason.
Yep. Yeah,
fucking amazing.
Yeah, I totally agree. The tonal stuff, those melodies, they just cut through this album. They really leave their mark, and there's some huge kind of vocal highlights on this. Just such a unique voice and just incredibly versatile as a metal vocalist. And amongst all the usual kind of cattle decap characteristics, there's some.
Dave,
what's that?
You were talking about synths, Dave?
Maybe. There's something about this album that just feels more grandiose, I would say. It's got a size that I don't think I've ever heard from the band before. There's a layer and a backing of synths on this album that just give it this real majestic feel.
It's kind of like what symphonic metal does. You know, like symphonic metal sounds bigger than it actually is. Like if you were to remove the symphony from a symphonic metal band, what would you actually have?
Yeah.
Like basic riffs.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's that way.
I would totally agree. One of the things I was about to say was it kind of reminded me of that kind of septic flesh type of size. And they use a fucking orchestra to do it.
Well, they have 40 cunts in the back tuning up instruments. There's just a wee man with a keyboard here.
Yeah.
Does this sound okay? Fucking alright, that's alright.
The choice of kind of chord progressions I've used, tracks like The Storm Upstairs, Aphotic Doom, Dead End Residence, they sound massive, like absolutely massive. It's got that real ominous kind of tone to it, but Cattle Decap, they managed to achieve that magnitude really cleverly by adding those parts in the right places. You know, they don't overdo it, and they just sit in the perfect place to kind of elevate the track to the next level. I thought And The World Will Go On Without You in particular just sounds gargantuan as a track. It's absolutely massive. Just one of the last things I want to mention is the closing track, which although this album is 52 minutes, the last track is over 10 minutes long. And they also did something similar to this on Death Atlas. It was another kind of long track as well. I kind of love these long form tracks that they do, especially as an album closer. This has this feeling of finality. It has that real conclusion to the release. And I think Just a Body is probably the most haunting track they've released. Like it's layered with piano and string parts. It has a very kind of imperial tone to the track. But musically, it's quite doom laden in the choice of chords that they use. So it works perfectly with the kind of somber mood of the synths. Vocally, you're getting more of those kind of melancholic cleans from Travis, and it's probably the most emotional moment of the album. And obviously, with regards to the theme that I mentioned earlier, makes sense. But it results in a very kind of meaningful finale to the album, which is very well placed and very well executed. I think this album is outstanding. It is rapidly becoming my favourite Cattle Decap album, and I've only had it for just over a week. So, and that that tells you something, because I've been listening to those other albums for years now. Just very last thing I want to mention. I like the artwork. All right, I know that online.
I wasn't saying I disliked the art. I was throwing a before we went on here. I was just throwing a wee stick of dynamite in there because apparently there's a backlash, Dave.
Yeah, there was a bit of like a mix online when they dropped it. Some people liked it, some people hated it. It's maybe not as typically kind of blood-soaked or kind of gory as some of the other album artwork they've had, but I think it's memorable. I think it's a really memorable artwork. I
don't think the album's blood-soaked, if you know what I mean.
No, it's not.
I actually think it works surprisingly well with the songs.
Yeah.
Almost as if someone had a thought about, we need to tie the artwork into what we're doing.
Absolutely, yeah.
Fits the concept. Read the fucking press statement I didn't read. Right? It's all in there.
But yeah, that just wanted to mention that briefly. But yeah, I fucking loved this album. I absolutely loved it. I was still spinning it today. Like before we did this review, I was still listening to it. Just phenomenal. What about yourself? What did you think?
So, gonna loop. You've comprehensively stroked this one off.
Apologies.
There is no semen left in the balls. It has been drained. I think. Specifically, it's never been an issue for them, but I think the production on this is exceptional.
Yeah,
like really, really, really exceptional. Like it's got that kind of, it's got the precision of those really technical death metal bands. You know what I mean? But without the lack of a soul, which some of those technical death metal bands have. Like it's everything, like you mentioned before, is so clean, so audible, so huge sounding, and like those bass flurries that you talk about, like on a track like the Storm Upstairs, where you get this discordant bass just like riffing little solo parts, like as if they're fucking nothing. Yeah, here's a little bass for you. I mean, it really, I think it's been easy in the past not to necessarily sleep on the technical proficiency of Cattle Decapitation. It's always been there, but I think this really does show the band's attributes at their peak.
Yeah,
well, I think personally this might be the best the band's ever sounded, if I'm being honest. Moving away from that into the actual flow of the album, I mean, it is a long death metal album. I get a bit wary when it comes to death metal albums that roll over the 45-minute mark, because I do feel that death metal by its nature is a genre that has several tricks that it will employ, but once you're aware of those tricks, it's like, well, the only thing that's going to change is the compositional piece of where you slot them. Terrasite has no issue with that at all, because they keep everything varied. No two songs actually really do sound alike, even though the core elements and components are there in some way, shape or form or facet. Like the way they mix them up is very interesting. Some tracks lean more on that symphonic element with flurries of black metal. Other tracks will forgo it altogether, like The Insignificance goes for a much more laid back, much more stripped back fucking like death metal old school kind of groove approach. But you get they constantly keep those elements changing in a way which is really satisfying to listen to. It's very Moorish.
Yeah.
Also, if you take off the closing track, which is 10 minutes long, this is like under the 45-minute mark for me. So like And if the last track wasn't as fucking good as it was,
yeah,
then maybe I would have an issue to complain about. But I don't. I think Just Another Body, I think haunting is the right word. And like the more I listen to it, the more like certain inflections, certain lyrics, like really started to kind of stick to me, cling to me after the listen. You can tell that it means something to them, even if it is exercising like a particularly sad chapter in their life out there. I think they've done it in the best possible way and channeled it into what they can do, which is, you know, give music and hope to the people that listen to the albums. I think that they should be applauded for that. I mean, the riffs, man, the riffs. It's such a varied album, and the chops and changes all work. The solos are fucking incredible.
Yep.
The drumming is in fucking scene. We've mentioned the bass. I'm going to come back to those vocals, man. I love the vocals on this album. I love it because I think there are a core contingent of death metal fans out there that when the vocal melody comes in, the fucking attention switches off.
Yeah.
And I think it's utilised in such a clever way on this album. Like, really, 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 it's not overdone. It's not underdone either. I think we get enough of it. There wasn't any one song where I was like, oh, you could have put a little bit of melody in there, or vice versa, where I was like, you know, maybe we should have done that. I think there's the perfect amount, which sums up the album. It is a surprisingly balanced and well-executed album. I say surprisingly not because I don't think Cattle Decap have it in them, but that fineness, that kind of like balancing on a fucking strand of hair, where either way might just change the opinion enough to kind of make you go, oh, well, that never happens. Like, you're constantly waiting for Ashu to fall off this, and it never does. It holds it together in such an impressive fashion, without ever becoming too wanky, or like, you know what I mean. It never is the right level of technical proficiency without being like a look what I can do. And on the flip side of that, I never felt like any song shortchanged the listener, like at all. I really do feel they give it all. It's a remarkable album to listen to, and at times so fucking hooky. Like I say, Scourge of the Offspring. Like it just that fucking chorus is so fucking huge, and you get a couple of them on here which are just great, and he shows the versatility in his vocals. Once again, having seen them live, once again pulls it off relatively easy. They're like genuinely built for one thing, and that is front of metal band. So yeah, it's. I'll be honest with you, I wasn't as excited on this one leading up to it as you were. I've like always been like the memorable Cattle Decap who I couldn't remember seeing. I mean, so memorable. Couldn't really, but like having spoken to spoken to the guitarist at the gig, and counting down to this one, this has been almost since the point where he's like that. Oh yeah, we've recorded an album. I've been like, all right, we'll wait and see what we get at the end of it. It's been worth the wait.
Yeah,
I think they are. I think in a year which has already proved to be very, very, very good for death metal, I think they've released one of the standouts. And it's another facet. Like if you like your old school stuff, you've got Obituary like kicking shit off. If you want that kind of new old wave, you've got some Sanguisugabog, and now we've got Cattle Decap just like fucking raw dogging it in your ear. We've still got 200 Stab Wounds to come, and God knows what else. And having seen Cannibal Corpse live this year, and being on a kind of high about it, this one scratches an itch that just like I didn't realise I really had for death metal, which feels so satisfying when it's scratched. So it is a formidable album. It really, really is. It sounds fucking massive.
Agreed. Scores for Terrasite. As I said, I think this is outstanding. Fast becoming one of my favourite albums by Cattle Decap. I think this album shows them flexing more sides than they've ever shown, while still being brutally controlled.
Sides in a Rubik's Cube.
I don't know how you improve on this, to be honest. Like I'm sure they'll try, but like this just seems like it's flawless. Yeah, it's a 5 for me. I fucking love this. Yeah. What about yourself? What are you thinking?
marginally below. Marginally. I'm coming in at 4.5. Which, I'll be honest, is higher than I thought I was going to come in for a Cattle Deca. I thought standard 3.5, 4 was where I, like I say, I'm not as big on them as you are, but this is an exceptional album, and that's not a grade that I easily give out to death metal bands. So they should take it, and fucking thankful. See.
That is the review of the new Cattle Decap album, Terrasite, which comes out on May 12th on Metal Blade Records. Links below to the band, to the Bandcamp pre-order. Check it out. Let us know what you think. Stick some comments in below once you've heard any of the singles or once you've heard the album. Happy to hear your thoughts on it. That is the review. Thank you for checking it out. We'll be back with another review very soon. But until then, take care. Speak to you soon.
Bye, everyone.